Hey,
All
buddy, what's
right.
going on?
Hey man, what's going on? How you doing?
Good, buddy.
All right. You dress like it's a little cold.
Yeah, it's a little bit cold. Florida, you moved to Florida for the
I
heat, and then it
uh,
doesn't follow you.
I
So,
thought you were vacationing up there in Saskatchewan again,
oh yeah, my people,
doing that ice
not
fishing.
not so much. Hey, what kind of hat you got on there today?
I'm glad you asked, man. This is a little fog hat. Oh,
Nice.
fog hat. That was a band, wasn't it? Yeah, this is our final option. You haven't seen this one yet, have you? You only seen the
No,
black
I
one.
have not.
Yeah, I got to mix it up a little
I
bit.
haven't got anything in the mail either, so
Yeah, yeah.
just
Just keep
throwing that
looking in
out
the
there.
mail because it's in the mail
Yeah, I've
as
heard
you're
that.
looking. All right. So let's just do this then. I told you I put out that post yesterday talking about you and I are going to be discussing some of the latest events, specifically talking about the Australia event.
Uh,
But just so we can hit on it, I talked about a couple things
of
on here.
course, nothing's going on the Brown University thing right now. There's no
Uh,
no follow-on information,
yeah, I
I
said
don't think.
we got to catch up with that. I don't know. I think last thing we heard that they released the guy, right?
That's correct. Yeah,
So
I
they
mean,
released the guy. You haven't heard
they're no
anything else.
closer today of giving us information that we didn't, from the other day. There's nothing new coming out.
Yeah, maybe we'll come
We're
up with some different angles on the videos that they have.
Yeah, nice.
Whole separate subject. Yeah. So anyway, so what I put down on the bullets on this post, I just said we were going to talk about the ill preparedness of the general population as well as local law enforcement response. Um, Looking at we take an event like just took place in Australia, and we just take that template and we set it here in anywhere USA, right?
Right.
Um, First thing I'll start off and say, and we've talked about it briefly already, is talking about the caliber of the assaulters. All right, so the attackers. Um, you and I texted as soon as it happened and put it out there. I said, "Man, these guys weren't with anybody. They're not organized, right? They're not professionals. We'll leave it at that."
Right.
And you notice the same thing also.
Yeah, they appear that they obviously function their weapons, you know, uh properly, we'll say that, but the uh the level of performance wasn't what we anticipate from a trained attackers, if you will, that we know that are out there right now that we believe, right, and some of the intelligence community believe that, or you know, headed our direction
Yeah,
here in the United States. So I think that if they learned anything, if two people with probably we'll say limited exposure on tactics and training can wreak that much havoc.
that's the scary
Um,
part. Yeah,
yeah, just think of the concept of the 10 guys in Mumbai that shut down a whole
yeah,
city,
yeah.
um, with
Which
with
we've been
rapid
talking.
deployment and tactics of the movement and things of that nature. Go
Yeah,
ahead. I'm sorry.
and no, I'm saying, and we know they're here, right? So we'll talk about that. I mean, it's
Yep.
easy to talk about now. We know they're here. There's too many sources out there that are verifying that these individuals are here. More and more sources are coming up, talking about their extensive training that they've gone through. Right. So we have a lot of factors that draw up or bring to mind a different type of individual slash team that we would encounter here, and it's all based on fact. It's not we're sitting
Right.
here making this up. We're not
Yeah.
imagining these
Yeah.
individuals are
It's
going
not
to
a what
be
if scenario.
trained, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
um, so, and just to try to mind, just depending on who listens to us on this, where, we saw people talking about, yeah, these two guys, you could tell they had military training, or at least one of them did, going whatever. That's going and learning how to shoot a gun or manipulate a weapon, doing a couple of these things. You can watch YouTube and you can
Right.
do something off of that, right? But something as simple as my first thought was, and we talked about it, I said, so the one individual left the bridge, goes down, exposes himself down there, no situational awareness going out into the open, obviously, with the guy coming behind him.
Right.
But his partner, he had no cover. So there was no one covering him, right? So
Right.
So now you've got two guys separating. They didn't work as a tandem unit.
No,
So they worked individually as two individual persons, right? Um, so that was the big thing of watching them come out there with shotguns and a bolt action. I think that's what the information is.
that's what it looked
So
like. Yeah,
yeah, so now we're talking about, and that's probably the only weapons they had access to with the gun laws and the restrictions that are in Australia. So now imagine we're talking about the exposure to what kind of weapons here in the US
right,
that the trained, highly capable individuals can put their hands on.
right. Or that they brought across from the southern border.
Yeah, because we know
Yeah,
we've got some of the indications of where they've caught the or discovered the IEDs at the border,
yeah.
which had been dropped.
Military grade weaponry. Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So if we as the law enforcement community are doing our due diligence, we're going to sit there and go, hey, look, what's the worst thing that could happen to our home front or to our jurisdiction if we're looking at very
Right.
consolidated thought process. What could happen here? And once you lay that out, you have to ask yourself, are we capable of defending or thwarting that type of attack? Um, and we mentioned it earlier, we were talking before we talked about getting on here was we basically see the same thing happening here as we saw in Australia, except for it's going to be at two different levels.
Right.
Right. So over there you have the caliber of attacker, which is down here, caliber of responding officers, not to beat up Australian police, but there's a lot of speculation on who arrived, what they were equipped with. When could they have engaged the subjects? Why the delay? So on and so forth.
There's so
But you're
many. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So let's say we're in here. So now we're talking about in the States. It's probably here. So the same thing is going to occur, but now you have highly trained individuals that are working through tactics, right, to initiate an assault. They've
Right.
got training capabilities and they have better weaponry. Now you could say that about the police department also,
Right.
but that's what I'm saying. It's two
Yeah,
different
the
two
offset,
different
but they're at a
degrees.
higher level. Off.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, with the offset. Yeah, absolutely. I fully concur with that. Yeah, we've been talking about this for the last year or so in the essence of expectations, and we've talked to several agencies, and a lot of them have talked about the difficulty in pulling a course off that we've talked about,
That training. Yep.
and our and what we have said is this, and this, and this is for the other folks out there, and that is you can't afford not to put it on. You can't solve a problem when you don't recognize what the problem is and you haven't worked out all the minutia that actually matters
Yep.
under duress, right? The coordination, the response time, the um the 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 continuity of responding officers from a variety of different jurisdictions, the understanding how we're all going to respond accordingly, and having a direct link to who's actually in charge overall on how that's going to play out in the
Yep. So
jurisdiction,
command structure. Yep.
right?
Or
So, those are all components that need to get addressed long before an event happens. And we're right at the cusp of this happening here in the States. It's happening all around us, and everybody is just waiting for the other shoe to drop, when the reality is you don't wait for the other shoe to drop. You actually you stand up and you go, hey, I recognize in a leadership role, I recognize that what we're lacking, and we need to solve the problem, and go out and seek out that training, whether it's us or somebody else, but seek out the training, learn what the problems are, solve the problems, and then we know that under duress, there'll be other problems that you may not have gotten
yep. That's when
resolved
you
in
discover.
training, but you have a good idea on how to solve them at
Yep.
that point.
Or even recognize that there are going to be problems like that that's going to arise. And we've been hitting on that lately when we've been battling the whole, what's best training for law enforcement, whether we're doing competition shooting or we're doing scenario based training, so on
Right.
and so forth. But, listening to you speak there, it just draws the mind that simple things like talk about the command structure and how
Yep.
that may break down. Communications, of course, when the comms go down, because you can lay everything out, the best laid plans, right? You lay everything out on paper, everything looks good. We look capable on paper, right? So,
Right.
and just look at our certifications, and you'll
Yeah.
be able to know, right? So, you got that laid out, but the simple things of dividing resources, so all of a sudden things arise, and you go, now we have to divide our resources. What takes priority? What are we doing? And a lot of these things, you don't understand the complexity of that until you get in the middle of it. And it's best to get in the middle of it during training than it is during the event.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Solve the problem in training. Yeah.
Yep. And you might not get the exact same problems, but you know that you will get certain problems that will arise that you didn't anticipate when you took the online course. And
Right.
it told you this is what to expect and this is what you're going to do, because that's not how things evolve, right? One last thing is I know you want to put on this one, and I'm always equating everything to sports, right?
Right.
Because it's almost everything that you need to deal with, you can deal with in a professional sports environment. I don't care whether it's soccer, football, professional basketball, whatever it is. And it's basically you have an opponent that you have to go against. How do you prepare for that opponent? That is the thing. Now, if you look in that respect of us and what we're talking about in relation to a MACTAC event, if we'll put that one
Right.
out, you have to look and say, how are we preparing for our opponent? And the best teams out there, how do they prepare for their opponents? They know what the game plan is. They know what their strengths and weaknesses are. That they'll work and prepare for those. They will go against. I've used this analogy during a post a while back. They go against scout teams. You have a
Right.
scout team that'll go out there and will mimic what your opponent does, and you have to formulate a game plan based on you going against that scout team. That's in sports, something that's not as serious as life and death or major events like this. So why we are not doing that comes down to a couple things that we've discovered, and we've been trying to work through that. One is logistics, it's budget, it's the complexity of understanding how the training needs to be delivered, right? Um, what the goals are for each block of delivery of training, so on and so
Sure.
forth.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's what we've been trying to work through, over the last couple, 6-8 months, talking about this with other
Yeah.
agencies.
Yeah. Well, actually, it's been longer than that. We started in last December. So actually
Yeah.
12 months now. Yeah. I know it goes fast, but, yeah. And I brought this question up. And if you remember this, talking to a SWAT commander, and that is this, a, if we're talking about multiple events inside your jurisdiction, and on average, you have a SWAT team, we'll say, is 12 to 20 members, and you get a call out. You only have a percentage of those that are going to arrive,
Yeah.
right? You got guys doing other things. They might be on vacation, might be out sick, they might be on other hot calls, whatever it is, right? So you get a percentage that show up. What are you going to do when you have that size SWAT team and you have maybe three separate events going on in your jurisdiction, your city limits? How are you going to utilize those? And this is what I posed to him was this. I said, are you going to separate your SWAT guys and utilize those as leadership elements to each one of those events, right? Or are you going to send them all to what you think is the initial event? What are you going to do? And he basically says, yeah, I haven't thought about it. Well,
Yeah.
see, that's the problem. In the essence of the problem is no one has thought about, hey, how am I going to utilize my trained SWAT operators to best friggin' solve the problems? And I say that in a plural sense, right? We have three major friggin' um, events going on in our city limits, whether it's 4, 5, 6, 10 guys, whatever it is, right? In talking about bad guys in each one of those events, and then maybe at the same time that's going on, I've got a vehicle driving down the interstate that goes through my city or the main road, and just shooting people randomly. How you know how am I going to divide up my resources and what's the best way to do that? And at what point do I start looking at solving that problem by how I divide my trained resources
Yep.
to supplement with the guys that'll actually be the first on the scene, which is patrol.
Yep. And when do you
Those are all the
designate it?
problems that we have to solve now and not after the fact.
Yep. 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 No doubt. And at what time or what situation do you actually call for assistance and get, help from, the state, feds, local counties next door, local PDs, whatever,
Yeah,
and how are they inserted into the whole dynamic of what's going
absolutely.
on? Because as soon as if there's no plan in place or how that command structure, who's going where, as it's unfolding continuously and new information is coming on, that's where the bog down happens, right? You get that paralysis by analysis part of it where all the information is coming in, you're trying to dissect it. You've got guys coming in from one jurisdiction, you guys coming in, where do you need me, what do you need me to do? Hey, SWAT commander's on here, he's got his 3 guys over here, what am I doing? If that's not laid out and rehearsed and going through those that dynamic ever changing environment and you figuring it out on the go, it is not going to happen in real time. It's going to
Yeah,
happen, but
yeah, time is of the essence, like you're saying. Yeah, absolutely.
and then even back in the original MACTAC days, if you remember, it was hey, once the criteria was met, then all of a sudden the call would go out and it would go to this jurisdiction, this captain, this
Yep.
commander here. We all knew
Yeah.
what the call was. It was a MACTAC call.
Yep.
Everybody can kind of rehearsed already, at least knew a basic idea of what the process was going to be. It was
Right.
going to be a mass event, multi-situational. At
Yep.
least they knew what they were responding to and probably had some idea of what the command structure was going to be and who was going to be controlling those strings on the as the puppeteer, right?
Right.
What are we doing lately over that?
Yeah.
Have we
Eh,
even crossed that bridge at all? And I haven't
Yeah.
seen that.
Yeah. And the thing that really needs to get addressed in that, which we actually do in our MACTAC class, is some of the smaller departments that have to reach out, you know, because some of the MACTAC, starting in the LAPD, which is you know, all-encompassing friggin' city limits. They have the capability of solving a lot of problems with,
Yeah,
how many
a lot of resources.
personnel they have. But when you have 100 sworn officers or 200 sworn officers, whatever it is, you got a 20-man SWAT team. At what point are you going to start reaching out, and have you already set up how that interaction, that communication is going to happen? Who exactly are you going to call, and how is that response time going to be,
Yep.
right? And what assets do they have or
What
bring to the
capabilities
table?
are they bringing? Yep, all of
Yeah.
it.
So those are the things that we talk about in our course, and how to manage that, and how to have that centralized command that drives all units, right? Because they have the chessboard, if you will, right? You
Yep.
have to have that in control, that element of control, or you're not going to be solving problems. You're just going to be chasing problems.
Yep. And how do we integrate? Because there's going to be rescue missions on top of that. How are we integrating our heavy vehicles to assist, on
Yep.
the attack or the contact portion? How are we using all of our heavy vehicles to assist with the rescue missions? All these things, cover for the rescue mission individuals. All of these things that was a high priority many years ago, right? Based
Yeah.
on
15 years ago.
based on, hey, this just happened, so let's go ahead and get ready for that. Guess what? It hasn't happened in a long time. What has happened? Our single lone wolf shooters have been out there wreaking havoc, untrained, undisciplined, basically just trying to send a message. And that's been our adversary up to this point. And
Eh,
that's how we
eh,
prepared our response to that
And
type
and
of
some of it
individual.
is actually even low resources. I mean, like this one in Australia, a bolt action and a shotgun,
Yeah.
right? You see how much hate and discontent that laid out there. So you can imagine somebody with capabilities and multiple magazines, on how they could do a lot more damage in the same timeline.
And that's not to try to get too deep in the woods either, but we talked about it at length of trying to get the message across of, trying to get law enforcement to realize that when this thing cooks off, it's not by happenstance.
Right.
Right? You've got a tactical, well thought out event that's going to unfold. The time has been picked. The place has been picked. You had nothing to do with that. What you have to do with is you're going to show up at this place at the time and at the event because it was dictated for you to be there during that time. If you think that a well coordinated group isn't expecting you to show up and how you're going to show up, all of that is planned out. So when you arrive and you think you're arriving to the lone gunman shooter in the mall, that's exactly the mindset you're going to show up, but they've got something planned for you.
Yeah, I mean, ambush, is the whole idea of it is to make it the most advantageous for the bad guy, not the good
Oh,
guy. So, it's the odds are stacked against you at the very beginning, right? So, I will say this is the one thing that we talked about early this morning, real early, was the mindset of, I'll say, gun control after this. Knowing that Australia has some of the strictest gun laws there are, and
mhm.
people think that it's the tool and not
Yeah,
the
of
mindset,
course.
right? And that has been the problem in the world as it is doggone the tool. If that was the case, you have more, like the United States, you have more people killed in DUIs. You're going to ban alcohol? Or you're going to ban cars? You're going to,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's a tool, the bad decision making or the hate and discontent that is causing the crime. It's not the tool itself.
And that's the hardest thing to address. The other stuff is easier.
Yeah.
And the other part, which we briefly talked about, is realizing, and and it's the same thing we're dealing with, whether it's law enforcement intelligence community, law enforcement intelligence, or whether it's the commercial side, protective intelligence we're talking about.
Oh yeah.
We've drawn ourselves or put ourselves in positions where we're relying so much on information that's being disseminated online and through chat forums and dealing with individuals where their standard operating procedure isn't operational security. They only hear to OPSEC. Why? Because they're not professional.
Right.
That's not what
Right.
they do. They don't mind announcing what they're going to do. Hey, just stand by. You're going to be really surprised tomorrow. We've got something. We're going to change the world tomorrow. Whatever we're going to do. And if they're being monitored, people see that indication. They go, hey, ding, ding, ding. There's a light on. There's something going on. We may have some activity. Right. The individuals that we're talking about, you have to worry about. You will not know because they are not advertising it. Just like a professional team on our side engages in OPSEC, those guys are engaging in OPSEC too.
Well, I'll say this: and I know there were some talking points on different news stations today. People talking about, hey, the young guy on this thing in Australia, the 24-year-old had some kind of signature online back in 2019 that they were looking at. And they're like, yeah, we could have solved this with our online intelligence program, whatever. I don't. I guess my point is this: if there's just a friggin' blip on the screen, he met with somebody or he went somewhere or whatever, is that actionable information? You see what I mean? So yeah, that doesn't do anything put them on the radar.
Yeah, yeah,
The
yeah. It's
you
not.
can't
They
take
can't do anything
action with
about
that,
that.
especially yes, especially in the United States, where you're going to go arrest somebody because they met with some bad people or they went to some country. So that wouldn't have solved anything.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
the so the
especially with
online
the
intelligence is a very narrow window when you start talking about it
yeah.
anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, as far as what the capabilities that we keep talking about, even they're talking about the FBI, they're being monitored, they're on, they're watching, they're tracking who they're talking to, going back. I mean, all that's fine, but that's all general information. They can do in open source type stuff. For them to
Right.
actually pull a case number, do investigations, devote manpower and man hours to things, they got to have something substantial. To your point,
Right.
right? It's just nothing when you go, well, they're on the radar. That's a very broad term to be able to say that.
Right.
But the whole part of why I brought up the that operational security part of the announcing, there just seems to be a barrage of things that we see online right now, and whether it's through departments or, like I said, commercial protective agencies or whatever, there's just so much merit is put into the technological surveillance and
Oh yeah.
searching and everything. And
But
at
it's
some
easy.
point, yeah, at some point, you just got to look at, you got to have the physical capabilities to
And the
go out
will.
and stop something. Right.
Yeah.
And we talked about it briefly before. Um, more and more, it's the whole, and I use the old adage of the whole, the wolf and the sheepdog. It's at some point, someone has got to stand in that breach. Someone has to be able to show up, have the capabilities, and have the will to go in there. And I know what, we all stayed away from over the recent years. We talked about we don't use um,
Violence of action.
yeah, violence of action, that term. Thanks. I forgot that term again. The violence of action anymore because it's too violent. Yeah, there's a reason
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah.
Um, and it really does come down to, you can have all the electronical capabilities and we get all into the high tech and everything else, but those are the tools to help you be in a more advantageous position when it comes time that you have to physically act,
Yeah.
but you still have to physically act. And that's the thing, that's the part it seems like that we're missing a lot of. And it's everything from, hey, you got to have the hard skills, but the soft skills, that's where it's at. And you're going to spend hours online, and we're setting up intelligence bureaus, and we're spending more man hours actually, going to training for online courses and doing all this other crap that's we're going off of data, and we're going off of tables, and we're going
Yeah.
off all these things that's easy to do, to your point, because all you do is sit down in front of a computer, and
Yeah.
and you can get this done. Eventually you got to go
Yeah.
out the door.
But that's just the gravy. That's not the steak and potatoes.
No.
That's the gravy. Yeah. Everybody wants the gravy, right? But you got to have the steak, right? So yeah, absolutely. The you have to, like you said, you have to have the physicality to get out there and actually do the job, right? You can sit behind the computer all day long. You got people, IT people writing articles now, right? I think you were reading something to me earlier about
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
somebody,
Run,
IT person talking about, you know,
run, hide, fight. Yeah, got to run, hide, fight. Still,
yeah, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I know that that was a Department of Homeland Security or something in the early 2000s,
Yeah,
twenty
I believe
ten,
that's
twenty twelve.
what it came out.
Yeah.
Yeah, run,
So
hide, fight. Last resort is defend yourself.
yeah, yeah, which was supposedly trying to give people something to think about during an active shooter event,
Yeah.
right? Instead of the taking action, right? That's all right, for a child, or whatever, but grown men have to solve the problem.
Yeah, don't be a victim. I
Yeah,
mean, be something other than that. Be smart, but it's learning tools of the trade. You got to go out there and learn the tools of the trade. But what is it? Tools of trade up? It's going hands on. Well, I don't care if it's law enforcement, whether it's civilian doing preparedness training, because that's a thing nowadays for obvious reasons. Unfortunately, you've got classes being given on how to defend yourself against active shooter situations,
yeah.
which doesn't
You
it
can do
doesn't bode
everything
well for
from yeah,
society.
sit on the ground, scoot on the ground, and grab a leg or whatever they're calling that now. I think they call it
Yes.
BJJ or something, but the
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
sorry. The
That's all right.
but I'm just saying that you have to have some you have to have some fortitude, right? Now I will say this, we'll go back to the Australia thing real quick. And I saw different clips, and you can clear this up if it's something different. But the bystander that jumped on the gunman, right? And then allowed him to return to the fight. From what I saw, a different clip where it looked like he made it back to the
Yeah,
footbridge.
picked up another weapon and
Yeah,
continued
and
firing.
you can so you might have solved a problem for a split second, but you allowed the problem to continue.
Yeah,
Hey, if you didn't have the means or it was a moral
skills.
decision that you don't want to shoot the guy, um, then that's your prerogative. But at least hold him, do something, contain him, so he doesn't get back in the fight.
Yeah,
Because all you have is doggone, you have broken down the fabric of the fight for only a matter of minutes, and then of course he gets back in the fight,
yeah.
right, and walked away, which was surprising too, with
Yeah, that
all
was a little
those people
disappointing.
around.
Hey, but kudos to the guy for having the
Yeah.
cojones to
Oh
jump
yeah,
out there.
absolutely.
I'll give that to him right from the get go. It's
Yeah.
just that would have been a better ending to the story if it could have been some type of
Well, the other
containment
side
or
of
like
that
you
is,
said,
is
some disablement.
yeah, it seems like there was probably 50 different angles from cell phones of video, but no action taken. That
Oh,
always
yeah, that's
surprises me.
very disappointing to see it. You know what I mean? Because it is all about this. Oh, there's one thing that came to mind I was going to say because this takes us back to a little bit of no one would have ever thought to check the high ground. So
Not in a thousand years.
these guys took the only high ground there was, a freaking a walking bridge.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Over the that was their position, which brought into mind that no matter where you are, whatever the terrain is, it might not be optimal, but there is a best optimal position for that terrain for an attack to come from, right? And that's your job. I'm kind of switching gears here now,
Yeah.
going
Yeah.
back
No, I
to
understand.
the protective side of the house, or
Yep.
even law enforcement when you arrive.
And solving the problem.
Is
Yeah.
knowing what you're stepping into. Somewhere, I think I told it, or I said it to you a couple of hours ago. I was just going through some stuff, and I think I saw it. It was Crisis something. I don't know what it was. It
24.
was British. No, this one was British Circuit magazine or something.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
British Close Protection, and they were talking in there about how this is an open area. This isn't any everybody typically thought this was a safe space, and bad things happen in even areas like this. You know what? I think I took a photo. I'm not doing it justice, but I want to make sure we hit that point because it was
Yeah, it's important. Yeah.
yeah. Oh, here you go. It's an open, permissive, high density public space, exactly where violence is least expected.
Mm,
That mentality kills me. You know
yeah.
why? Because that mentality is the same as, and again, this is a protection magazine, a close
Right.
protection magazine, where it's least expected and hardest to stop. That mentality is what is wrong with everything. I don't care if it's the Charlie Kirk thing, whatever it is. We had, and again, we'll go back and beat it up. The
Yeah.
dude, Schaefer, whatever.
Yeah.
Interview, shot from the roof. It's almost impossible to stop. Who would
Mm,
have thought in 1,000 years? You know who would have thought in 1,000 years? People that do this shit for real.
yeah.
Like people who
That's
actually
actually part of it.
protect
Yeah.
individuals. That's who thinks about it. And it's not just as it that in that environment, or it's in this environment, or we got to really about that environment. It's every environment. If you're
Yeah.
doing
Yeah.
protection, you're doing
You
protection.
do
It's
your
either
job.
on or
Yeah.
off. You know,
Yeah.
that's the thing. That's the most I know we're going back and forth between the law enforcement protection side of the house,
No,
but
no.
they're so correlated. The same people driving the train on each side are the same people. They're the same individuals.
Yeah. And well, they're definitely missing the mark. There's no doubt, right? It's the
Yeah.
same thing
Yeah,
as
there's no vision. You have no vision. That's the
yeah.
sad part.
Well, it's the same people that would say ban guns instead
Yeah.
of fix the ideology and the thought
You,
process.
and we mentioned this earlier too, and I know we did in another post, which was, you have to ask some very serious questions, and you got to be honest about the answers. And as we're talking about with the multiple site, multiple actor deal,
Right.
it's it is complicated. There is no doubt about it. It is chaotic and it is complicated. And to train for that, it takes a lot.
Yeah.
I don't care whether it's, you got to get the right budget in place. You got to get the right facilities to train at in place. You've got to get coordination in whatever units or divisions or whatever you're using. It takes a lot, but it can be done. It needs to be done. It has to be done because, as you said earlier, the price you pay for not getting it done is just too extreme.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
price is too high.
it's yeah, it's unrecoverable. It's unrecoverable. The to wait until after the event, and we know that businesses in general, whether it's protection, law enforcement, whatever it is well, it hasn't happened yet. It's more reactive.
Yeah, let's
You
let's
know,
let's all react because that's what we do.
and that's not the way it should be, right? And that's why we've been talking about this for at least a year now on some of these events, and we see them starting to play out throughout the world, and it's only a matter of time. So now's the time to act, solve the problem.
No,
Don't set the ego aside, right, and go,
that's the biggie.
hey, because if you don't mind, I'm gonna run down this
No, go ahead.
diatribe real quick, and that is this: the idea that we can solve the same problem that gave us the problem to begin with, right? The same mentality. We have to look beyond that, right? That incestuous relationship of hey, I'm just going to get my training guys to actually put something together. Well, they're going to think
Yeah, that's the
exactly
big one.
what they've been doing in training, right? And they're not going to look for outside information. And we see it where you're a elite tier 1 operator, right, for the government. We see it, in special operations. We see it in law enforcement. We see it in dignitary protection. We see it where we actually tried to solve the same problem with the same mentality that caused us to have the lacks of answers to begin with. That's just inhumanly possible, right? Um, you have to look at outside sources. You don't have to adopt per se exactly what they're doing, you know, but it will give you an idea of the things that you're lacking, and you will be able
Yep.
to, come up with a
Yeah.
solution
Open up
for
some different
yourself.
doors for you, a different mindset.
Absolutely, you have to. That's like only having conversation with people that completely agree with you. There is no learning in that at all.
Yep.
That's why when, the whole thing of opposites attract, right? Well, opposites attract because they have conversation. Because if we think just alike all the time, why are we talking about it? Because you think just like I do. There's no reason to have discussion.
Yep. Yep.
You're an
As
echo
we'll,
chamber at that
we'll
point.
just be, yeah, we'll be sitting there patting each other on the back the whole time,
Yeah.
talking about what a good
So,
job we're doing.
yeah. So you have to reach out. You have, even if it's people you go, you know what? I don't really agree with what they're doing, whatever it is, but I'm going to go to their training because it's different than, I've done or seen or whatever, unless it's just radically crazy. You know what I mean? And I'm not talking about the Israeli stuff right now, but
Not now.
yeah, yeah. So anyway, the as I digress, I'm just saying you have to actually go out there and you seek out information because it will make you grow. You don't have to actually,
Yeah.
adopt what they're doing, but it will definitely make your thought process grow.
Yeah. Well, you need to figure out if you're missing something, and we ask each other that all the time. I know I ask you all the time before I go off on something. I'm like, man, tell me if I'm missing something, because this I can't wrap my mind around what's being said here or what's being done,
Yeah,
but am I missing something? Because I may be, and this happened before, maybe once or twice, where I've
we
said
all do. Yeah,
okay, all right, well, I was just misunderstanding exactly what was being said, or I didn't interpret that way, or whatever it is. But the point being is that if you're not trying to figure out if you're missing something in relation to a certain mindset or concept you may have about a certain subject, then man, you're not trying to grow. You're not trying to
yeah.
learn.
You're
And
not
that's
trying to
really
be
what
the
it comes
best.
down to.
Yeah,
Yep. Yep. The challenges.
it's
Want to hit a couple of these other things here right here before we
yeah, yeah.
wrap up. One was, if you'll elaborate on this a little bit too, talking about the active shooter. where I put it on here that if we constantly think we're going to fall back on the active shooter training we've been doing over the last decade or so, um, and we base it on what we've seen and what we know to be true about an active shooter, how is that going to come and bite us in the ass when we come back talking about these multi-event, multi-location, multi-adversaries?
Yeah, I can only imagine. I know we talked about the training that we did for the department. We won't name the department, but it was a mid-sized department, several hundred, and they had just gotten the national standard of this response for an active shooter. Um, and I will say this: you know, the, and it wasn't a multi-event. That's what's scary about the whole thing. But they uh, they all were certified under this program, and I had the role players doggone in the very back there screaming and yelling and things of that nature, and then I had another group sequestered in the building. So as they actually just kind of blew past cursory, did a blow past the doors to the where the threat was because all the screaming that was going on and the gunfire, if you will. And then they were actually um, engaged from behind because they blew past the secondary group that came in right behind them and basically shot them all with Sims, right? Because they did not have a protective posture up. It was all about, putting the shooter down as quickly as they can,
Yeah,
saving lives. Well, um, sometimes, and this is what I told them, sometimes you don't realize that they're not the victim. They're not the intended victim.
yeah,
That the response team is
sure.
the intended victim, and they're trying to draw as many as they possibly can into that kill zone, into that structure, and
And,
put them
and,
down. Whether
and
it's
that's a hard
patrol,
pill to
SWAT,
swallow sometimes, hard pill to swallow for law enforcement,
yeah, yeah.
thinking
So
themselves as a victim.
they, they took it pretty rough. That and the next scenario was IEDs throughout the structure that were open IEDs. You could tell the wires hanging out, things, and they blew right past them.
Impromptu, kind of
Yeah,
impromptu, just put in
yeah,
there.
yeah. So just blew past going to what they thought was the killing room, or, the active room with all the screaming and shooting that was going on when it was nothing but bait.
Yep.
So, these are all the things that they didn't even think about. They're like, yeah, this was never covered. And it was at uh, a federal facility that they went to get this national certification. And I said, these are all the things that should be talked about,
Yeah.
right? You don't solve the problem if you wind up being the problem.
And with that is them realizing, I say them being law enforcement, realizing that you're looking at two different, completely different animals. Number one is what you've been used to. The persona, the mindset of that individual has just been, I'm going to die. I'm just going there to die anyway, and I'm gonna go in there, and probably some of it, arguably, may just be suicide by cop. They're going to go in there. They have a grievance. What are they going to do? They shoot up a couple individuals. They shoot up a classroom. They hunker down somewhere, and they just wait to have the police come and eliminate them. Right?
Right,
That's a totally different mindset of someone's plural. It says our intention is we're going to go out, but we're going
we're
to go
taking
out after we do this, this, and this, and we're taking out as many of them as we can. And how are we going to do that? Another difference. The people that we've dealt with up to this point for the last couple of years, they haven't been sitting there studying how their adversaries respond. So they don't have anything planned for you except for I'm going to engage you when you come in. These adversaries we're talking about, they study and see how you're going to respond to set you up the way you were just talking when you actually work with that team doing the red cell stuff,
right.
right? Showing them their vulnerabilities.
And they haven't gone against suicide bombers either.
No, not here.
The American police. They that's something completely foreign to their thought process.
And we're getting
So,
lured in recently too. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but real quick on This one here, what they say, IEDs, two IEDs, rudimentary IEDs found in their vehicles. That was in
Yes.
Australia.
Right.
The New Year's Day truck terrorist that drove down through New
In New
Orleans,
Orleans. Yep.
IEDs were involved in that one. All of these are kind of, matter of fact, or, kind of secondary type of, the subject is secondary in nature, right? The
Right.
IEDs. One was they're using guns or they're using vehicles, but what about when it gets switched, where the IEDs are is what draws you in, and that's where um, the initial attack is that takes out several people, several vehicles, whatever it is, and now as you roll into the place, that's on your mind. Explosions. How does that change the way you arrive on scene when the
Oh yeah.
call comes across that there's been an explosion at so and so? If they say that, let's just use it here because this is easy to put in context. Your law enforcement arriving to the local synagogue, and there was a vehicle outside that exploded. So now I'm gonna go ahead and start thinking now. Even if I am U.S. law enforcement, I may be thinking Jewish Community Center, VBID, right, or a synagogue. I can put those two together. It doesn't take much. So how does that affect me when I arrive on scene? Right? Have they thought about it? I think they have thought about it, but how do they train for it?
Yeah.
And now the secondary event goes off, right? Or now we have another event that involves gunfire. And now all these different things are going on, whether it's VBIDs, whether it's secondary devices, follow on devices, whatever it may be, follow on with small arms attack, whatever it is, that is the playbook from these individuals, what we're talking about. And we just haven't encountered that here. If we talked about it or thought about it, it's been on paper. It's been on paper and it's been on in manuals and it's been in directives and mandates and everything else, but it hasn't been in training.
Yeah. No one. I don't think anyone actually wants to take the time. It's. I think you talked about this on one of the other talks, and that was doing the high risk warrant things, all the things that are easy to actually set up and train. Um, I know that you know talking to a friend of ours on the East Coast was talking about they train once a month and they rotate whatever subject they're going to do. So
Mhm.
at what point as a SWAT team, a part-time SWAT team, at what point are you going to cycle into whatever we're talking about? If
No,
you're doing
it's not happening.
you know yeah, yeah, if you're doing high risk warrants, stuff this month, what are you doing next month? I mean,
And it's
at
one
what
day.
point are you? Yeah, yeah, it's one day. It's 8 hours.
Yeah.
So, um, there's got to be there's got to be more commitment from a city, a
Yeah. Yeah.
jurisdiction, to the law enforcement community to 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 get this training.
Yeah. And into that, you're talking about that rotation where you go, we're going to rotate subjects. How many times during the course of that year do we cover barricade subject?
Right.
I mean, like we're probably going to get some repetition on that, some follow on where we're training and
They're
then we're
comfortable.
leaving it off and we'll pick it up
Yeah.
again and we'll continue it on.
Right.
Where here that will not happen. If they even cross that bridge, it'll be a cursory, and then they'll get back to the bread and butter. Right? We're doing hostage rescue because we do hostage rescues all the time. We're going to do hostage rescue. We've got a barricaded subject and high risk warrant. That's what we're going to do. Boom, boom, boom.
Yep.
We may do a vehicle takedown every now and then because we got to throw that in there. Or we're just going to do more and more online courses like with NTOA.
Oh yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
we'll knock
The
those out. Last one, I will leave off this one, and then I actually got to wrap it up here, man. I got to get
Okay.
going. I have how a reliance on a timely a reliance on a timely tactical team response will be a major miscalculation. Right. So we love talking about SWAT. We love talking about tactics, the tactical team, so on and so forth. We've just got to be realistic when we start talking about what the time response is going to be and what is going to take place at this event prior to attack team even arriving. Right. So
Right.
so so much that the patrol or detective division or whoever is out working at that time, waiting for
Right.
SWAT team to show up, how much damage and how much chaos is going to take place prior to that TAC team arriving.
Right. And I think that when we talk about the training aspect of this, the MACTAC side of stuff, we both agree that it's got to be everybody in the department.
Yeah.
It can't be just the specialized units because
Nope, not
who
at all.
who who's out there, who's responding? Hey, you're on patrol, you're driving around, you're going to be the first one that's going to show up at the mall, the
Yep,
hospital, the whatever, bank, um, because it's in your district, your area of
yep.
responsibility.
Yeah, who's going to be the
Um,
first one to realize what the event is,
yeah,
and how it's
and
unfolding?
recognize it. That's the key
Yes,
word, right?
that's going to be the big one right there.
Yeah, recognizing what's going on, and how it's playing out.
Yep.
So,
And
and
it's
that also goes with, and I didn't mean to interrupt you,
no,
buddy,
no,
but
no, no.
that
You're
also
good. I
goes
got
with
thought.
dispatch recognizing when they're
Oh,
getting multiple
everything.
calls in.
Yep,
They're getting multiple calls in on various activities that they have to actually start looking at putting it together, as
yep.
now it's a multi-event.
Yeah, because now as you are directing units to certain areas, you're going to have to give them, the extra information and the caution to realize, hey, this may be one of these incidences. Because if they just roll in, I'll say collectively, because we've been putting out videos, I don't know for how long now, years, on how the normal popo arrives at the scene at something. Go ahead,
Right.
go ahead and have police officer shot somewhere
Yeah.
and watch how they roll in at the scene, right?
Oh yeah.
Just
All
just
together.
begging to be a victim, right?
Yeah.
So that may be the first thing we have to change. That's the mindset we have to change. You can't be the cavalry come rolling in here, because there may be something sitting there waiting for you, because that's what they're anticipating you're going to do. Why? Because that's what you always do across the board. Now with social media and video and everything else is out there, there's so much online information to see how cops respond to what type of incident, how they arrive on scene. And that
Yeah.
information
It's
is out there, and they will use that against you. That's what they do.
Yeah, police officers like to collect in one area. There's no doubt about that, right? We've seen some over the last several months where, they've, completely oblivious to what's going on,
Yeah, yeah.
and just walking up. You got an active shooter situation at the house. That situation, um, just terrible, just
Well,
terrible.
they're just not accustomed to being the target. And that's the issue. And I think maybe that's why we're so adamant about this stuff here too, is that once you've been a target, you know what I mean? It's hard to get that out of your mind.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's kind of hard to lose that mindset once you have been targeted and you've had to do all the necessary procedures and tactics and actions to not be a target.
Yeah, that goes hand in hand with the part that we talked about before, which is the doing the protection side of stuff. You got a principal that actually has a direct threat on him. That's you too. You're
Oh,
you're
oh
you
yeah.
know you're on the detail, so you're with them. So having that mindset, knowing that everything that is taking place has the possibility or probability of impacting how you're getting from point A to point B, how you're doing everything you do throughout the day will be impacted because you have to have that thought process. You cannot get away with, oh, I didn't even think about that, or not in 1,000 years that would happen. That can't even enter your mind whatsoever. The
Yep.
possibilities are endless, and you have to think those things through.
And on that one too, and I know I keep beating that one up, which is the hey, you're either doing the protection or you're not. To do the I haven't got any indication, at this location or wherever's going on, we've got no indication that threat level is up. So we don't need to be so tight on our coverage here. Our security posture can go ahead and be relaxed, and we end up doing something that doesn't even look like security. All right, Trace. Well, let me do this, man. You're going to wrap this up. I've got an engagement I got to get to here, but if you had
All right.
one
I have
lasting,
so much more to talk about too.
all right.
You're the only one that listens to me, so
Well, that's
I
okay. I don't
appreciate
know. It's give and take, back and forth.
it.
All right, man. So
All right, brother.
let's do this in the next day or so.
Thanks, man.
All right, man.